What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to the Life to Metal. It's time for our top 15 of 1986.
Scott's going to do 5, and I'm going to do 5, and then we're going to do a top 5. So it's going to be like 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, and then the top 5.
There you go. You want to go first?
Okay. Alright. Normally, we don't do compilations so much, but this was an important one for me. So this is my number 10. Diamond Head, Behold the Beginning, was the first chance I really got to hear any of their music pre-Borrowed Time. Borrowed Time was the only album I had for them by years. I loved it. And I always kept hearing about the earlier stuff, Lightning to the Nations, aka the White Album, but it wasn't really readily available back then. So when this came out, Lars Ulrich compiled this. This is actually a Japanese cover. This is the Europe-US cover. And it had a bunch of the best tracks from the various singles that Diamond Head did in the early days of the new wave of British heavy metal movement and the Lightning to the Nations album. So really great one. Standout tracks for me were It's Electric and Play It Loud, which were great tracks. The original version of Am I Evil that was on Lightning to the Nations, which actually was a bit more keyboard based than the all guitar version on Borrowed Time. Just a great batch of songs, great Diamond Head. If you like Diamond Head, you would love this. So this was an important one for me. One of my favorite bands, definitely my favorite new wave of British heavy metal band. Always love these guys. Alright, so here's Scott's 10.
My number 10, FLOTSAM and JETSAM, Doomsday for the Deceiver. This is actually the first album from Flots, Arizona-based band.
With Flotzilla.
Flotzilla, yep. And this, of course, everybody knows Jason Newsted was their bass player, and he disappeared from here and took off to Metallica. But man, I think if you were just the right age when this came out and you heard it as a new release, this thing blew me away.
It was good.
To this day, it's one of my favorite albums. A lot of people call it thrash metal. I don't really get that from here. Maybe this would be more the speed metal thing, because the singing's clean, it's high pitched, it's got almost a Judas Priest-like effect to it. But it definitely has some speedy music on here. And it's just not a song on here I don't like. Iron Tears, Desecrator, Fade to Black, Hammerhead, Doomsday for the Deceiver, Metal Shock, Der Fuhrer. I mean, it's just not a bad song on here.
There was a bonus track on the cassette, and it was Flotzilla, wasn't it?
Flotzilla, didn't Flotzilla show up on the...
I thought it was bonus on cassette only on this one.
I think that's on my CD version of it too.
Maybe. Yeah.
Anyhow, great album. I love Eric A.K.'s vocals. He just screams here. A lot of these songs were composed by Jason Newsted, which just goes to show you how much talent the guy had as far as songwriting, which we never saw in Metallica.
Not really, no.
I don't think they ever gave him the opportunity or the chance.
And Jason, as much of a great opportunity as it was for him, history's kind of shown that he bore the brunt of a lot of Metallica's grief over losing Cliff, and he weathered it as best he could, I guess. But
what was his name on the Jason New Kid or something like that?
Yeah, Jason New Kid. And they teased him relentlessly.
Yeah.
And did you mention Phoenix band?
Yep, Arizona-based band. Yep. Anyhow, I love this album. It's just one of my favorite. There's a box set of this out that I had, a CD box that Metal Blade put out, and it's got all the demos and all that stuff. And man, it's just some great stuff, and there's some live material.
Awesome.
So I actually have the original CD of this. So I just love this album. I have 3 or 4 copies of it. So it was definitely mine. It wasn't in his top list. So,
but I did have this, and I did like it.
Yep. And this one was actually was in my top 5, but I had to drop it down so that our top 5 matched. So.
Right.
FLOTSAM and JETSAM, Doomsday for the Deceiver. I like all FLOTSAM stuff, but honestly, that's my favorite album by them, and always will be.
Yep. All right. Again, we didn't have this one on vinyl, but I was very into this one. It's probably my favorite one that this artist has done as a solo artist outside of his main band. Just always preferred him with Merciful Fate. This is the debut King Diamond album, Fatal Portrait. Still my favorite that he's done. I haven't been as much of a fan of his solo material as I was with the stuff he did with Merciful Fate. It was just a different sound, different vibe that he had with them, even the later stuff.
Right.
I just preferred them as a band than I did King as a solo artist. This stuff definitely was was far removed from the Hail Satan stuff of Merciful Fate. Much more into like horror stories and things like that, and very elaborate horror stories. Pretty much every album was a concept album for King Diamond, with the exception of this one. I don't think this one
I don't think it was either. That was more, yeah.
I think a few of the songs I think held to a specific storyline, but it wasn't the whole thing by any means. Bonus track on this one was Lake, that was not on the original, but my favorite track is the opener, The Candle. It's creepy as hell. Still, these days. It's such a cool sound to it, but it's so damn scary sounding. And I just remember listening to this the first time through and just staring at the cover. And the cover, it's not anything really that outstanding, it's just creepy. It's just got this creepiness about it that I can't put my finger on. And it just totally creeped me out. What?
I put my finger on it.
Oh, yeah, don't look. It will do something to you. I can't think of the word. Candle, definitely a favorite track. Another great one on here is Karen, the ferryman and Take You Across the Sticks, Karen or Sharon, however you say it. Great track. It's a solid album. To me, it's his best. The best he did.
I really like that album too. I think it's one of his better ones too. Is Andy LaRocque the guitar player on that one?
Yes, he was. Andy LaRocque, but also Michael Denner was on this as well. So he did. Michael Denner and Timmy Grabber were on this one. So you know, 3 out of 5 Merciful Fate members were on here. Mickey D was the drummer who went on to play with Motorhead, and Andy LaRocque.
And Mickey D kind of looked a little glammy there, didn't he too?
Yeah, they all had their hair a little bit up. Not King, of course, and Michael Denner didn't have enough, but. Yeah, but still, yeah, there was no real trace of hair metal in this one.
No,
at all.
Alright, this album, again, I guess I'm the thrash metal guy this time, because I mean, if people are going to say you put that over Slayer, Rain and Blood.
Yep.
I did. This is the first label debut album for Dark Angel. Is really their second album, of course. Their first album was independent released. It was released on Axe Killer in Europe. The band used the money that they from licensing to Axe Killer to put out their own version in the U.S. with that black and white cover, which is a great album. But this album
was that We Have Arrived.
We Have Arrived. Yeah. This album, Darkness Descends, featured for the first time in the band, and the guy who would actually, take the band far into their more technical and brutal sound, Gene Hoglan on drums. He didn't play on the original album, so and of
different
course,
singer too.
This is Don Dottie who sang on this album. Don has a unique voice. For me, I prefer Ron Reinhardt's voice. I just think he's got a more.
Ron was the original singer.
No, Ron sang on the.
Okay, so Don sang on.
Don sang on this one and the first album.
Okay, couldn't remember how that went.
But Ron Reinhardt sang on this tour. I don't know the whole story. I've heard bits and pieces from different Dark Angel members about why Don was out of the band. Basically, I heard he really struggled in the studio, and they barely got his vocals done, and he just wasn't cutting it. And I don't know everything. I don't even care. It's not any of my business. But Ron Reinhardt ended up taking up, and he sang on the tour for this. So if you get the Ultimate Revenge 2 soundtrack, which got the live songs off of this, it's Ron on vocals on those. But anyhow. Regardless of that, this album is just heavy. Definitely Slayer influenced, but it's just got a brutal sound. I mean, it's a little more. I don't want to say death metal because it's not. It's thrash, but it just has that little more brutal, especially for an American band.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not Sodom or Destruction. It's very heavy for an American thrash band at the time.
I had the demos prior to We Have Arrived. That was all I ever had by them.
And that was Don Dottie singing on those too. Eric Meyer, of course, Jim Durkin, those are the main guys, Mike Gonzalez, and those guys are still in the band to this day. So, with Gene Hoglan and
Ron is still singing for him?
Ron is still singing for him.
Whatever happened to Oil? Did they just kind of disappear?
They disappeared. Oil was Ron's band after
with Blake
Nelson.
Yeah.
Blake went on to, and he's still around, he's got Blake and Stein, I believe is the name of his band now, and it's I don't know, it's very theatrical music. Very different from Oil. Oil was more of a groove-based, heavy sound. Not thrash, but very groove. Like a lot of the 90s thrash bands with that groove sound, that's kind of where Oil went.
Okay.
But anyhow, great record from them. Fast, obnoxious, heavy. Just what you want from a thrash metal band. Always like the cover, too, even though it's not much to it. Just a bunch of hands coming out of a grave. And all my copies autographed by Gene. So.
Awesome. Very cool. Did Gene play with anyone else?
Gene played with a lot of bands. He played with Testament.
I knew I heard his name before. It's from Testament. That's it.
Yeah, he played in a lot of bands.
All right.
Death.
Death? He was in Death too?
He was in Death, yeah.
Okay. He got around.
With Andy LaRocque.
Andy LaRocque was in Death too?
Yep. Individual Thought Patterns.
Prior to King Diamond or after?
After King Diamond. It would have been... it was Individual Thought Patterns, had Andy LaRocque doing lead guitar, of course with Chuck, and then Gene Hogan was on drums.
I don't remember how long Andy was with King Diamond.
I think he's still with King Diamond.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he is.
Okay. Was he on all of them?
I'm pretty sure he was.
Okay. Okay, never mind. Okay, this band was not really part of the whole hair metal movement, but they were popular at the time. This is pre-Guns N' Roses, so I loved these guys. Tesla, their debut, I thought it was brilliant. Great songwriting.
It's a great album.
It is. Great songwriting, great twin guitar attack. Not the type of twin guitar attack that you usually associate with like Thin Lizzy or Wishbone Ash or Iron Maiden.
Right.
They weren't like a harmonic team. They just played off each other really well. And some very bluesy kind of thread that goes through their writing. I just really dug it. Modern Day Cowboy was a great song. It just was such a good song, and it was so much better than a lot of the stuff that was popular.
They had a huge 70s influence, I always thought.
They did. Jeff Keith is the singer. Is that his name? I can't remember. Whoever the singer was, he kind of had a Steven Tyler.
He did have Steven Tyler grit to his voice, yeah.
A little bit high on the higher end. Just a good band. They had some decent. They wrote good ballads too. Like Little Susie was the kind of the ballad on here that was a good one.
That was released as a single too, I believe. Little Susie was. Yep.
It was a good album. I really dug it. I dug it a lot, and I dug their second one after this. Great Radio Conspiracy.
Yep.
I didn't quite follow them after that, but the first two albums they did, I thought were really strong albums. And when I had my radio show in college in '87, I used to spin this a lot.
Do you consider them to be one of the hair metal bands?
I think they're right on the cusp, kind of like Dokken.
Yeah.
I don't really put them in it, but I don't put them in it either because they're a bit more organic, and I think they're a bit more almost there's a southern rock thing in there too. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't really call them a hair metal band because
I know most people put them in that category, but I never thought of them as that either. So
they were definitely there in that period alongside all those other people, but I wouldn't call them that at all. I think they had a little more substance to their songwriting, I think, than most of the hair metal bands.
I always kind of had. You always hear the big '70s influence in their sound.
Totally. Yeah.
Definitely has the '80s production quality.
Yeah, definitely, and it was just good. They're a good band. They're just a really good band.
Yep.
The second album, what was that song? No Way Out, Heaven's Trail. Loved that song. That song totally got under my skin. Was one of my favorites. Yeah, Tesla. I like them. Named after Nikola Tesla.
Currently, I'm on a Metal Blade trip here because this is another Metal Blade release. John Ark era, Fates Warning. Third album for Fates Warning. They had gotten their own sound on this album. John Ark's voice is just otherworldly. He's just. I talked earlier about the Tate style. He kind of pioneered that style as well. Not only did that, but Fates Warning kind of helped pioneer that progressive or prog metal sound. And this was really the album where they really started getting.
This was album number 2?
3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
This is before the change in singers.
Right. And that was Awaken the Guardian was third album.
Okay.
And then what's the name of the second album? I love that album. I can't think of the top of my head right now.
Spectre
Within. Sorry.
I can only think of the one with the red hallway with the different singers.
That's No Exit. Yeah.
That's it.
And that was the one that thought, and that way went further into the prog metal thing.
Yes.
And then the band would really start changing after that and get even a little more commercial. And then they started getting more proggy and even getting out of the metal thing and doing more just prog rock kind of stuff.
Interesting.
But this Iron Maiden influence, but very different from Maiden. Like their first album, I always thought kind of had a Maiden almost clone sound to it. With Spectre Within, they kind of found their sound, their style. With this album, they solidified it, and this to me is the best Fates Warning album ever. It's just fantastic.
There's a track on there called The Sorceress, is that right?
Yes.
That's the track.
Yeah, that's actually side 1, the first song.
I like that track.
You know, produced by the Metal Blade team. It looks like a Metal Blade album. That artwork that a lot of Metal Blade albums had. It was produced by Brian Schlegel and Bill Metoyer, you know, so it's that.
What's the one that's got the figure on it with the red eyes and the kind of headdress that has horns looking.
That's a Spectre Within, right?
Spectre Within. That's the one.
And that actually made our list for last video, 86.
Yeah, so we were talking about
that's a great album, and I just couldn't drop this one down because I just think it's such a great album. So, Metal Blade Records. I loved Metal Blade around this time. I was pretty much bought. If it came out on Metal Blade, I bought it.
Yeah, great label.
Yeah, at the time, yeah, I wouldn't do that now with them, but
no.
But back then, yeah, if it was on that label, I bought it. And it really had a lot of variety on that label too. But
which is cool. It's cool when a label has a consistency that you can just trust the label.
Yeah,
and that's a good way to discover new bands. So when you trust the taste of the people that own the label, that's a big deal. You know. All right. This is just so funny. I can't believe I have these two bands in my top 10.
I couldn't believe this was in your top 10 either.
Well, all right. So we're talking a little bit.
I love this album.
Oh, me too. I was huge into this one. This was my favorite. All right, we're talking a little bit about. We're talking a little bit about the whole hair metal movement, and this band I would definitely put them in there. But hands down, to me, they were the best.
And I think that's the only hair metal album that made our list.
Yeah,
and it had to stay because it was in both our lists.
And it's just such a strong album. The songwriting is so strong on this, and there's a blues thread running through it. I think that gives it more substance than most.
I remember when they first came out, everybody was accusing them of being an Aerosmith clone.
There's definitely the influence for sure. And Tom Kiefer just had a great,
that
shrieky sound, and he was a great songwriter and a great guitar player.
Yep.
So, but they definitely had the hair metal vibe.
Oh yeah. I mean, weren't they discovered by Bon Jovi? I mean, they kind of look
probably.
They all look like Bon Jovi on the front, but.
And remember their drummer Fred Corey. It was like he was still underage when this came out, so he had a little bit of trouble. They couldn't quite go on tour until he was old enough, like something. But
he played in Chastain as well, I believe.
Did he?
Yep.
This is just a great collection of songs. Somebody Save Me and Shake Me were the two big hits on it, MTV hits. And I remember waiting for a long time for the second one. I heard about it coming out. Gypsy Road was released as a single. I couldn't wait to hear it, and it just seemed like it took forever to come out.
And it was a different sound.
It was way more bluesy.
Yep.
Way more bluesy.
I loved it.
I loved it too. These first two albums, I really dug them. They're still up among my favorites of the genre.
I still think they had that huge Aerosmith vibe to their. I mean, even Tom Kiefer playing piano on the stage, you know, the Dream On.
They definitely.
There's so many things I saw. And
they just had more depth.
His relationship with the guitar player, the mics. He even had the mic with the the thing
the
going
whole
down.
thing was that he was a guitar playing front man.
Yeah.
Where Steve Tyler wasn't. So, but great band. I still love them. And they were a lot of fun. I mean, I remember the band I was in. We used to cover a bunch of their stuff. Hard as hell for me to sing it, but
I met them too. Matter of fact, at the same time I met what was the other band I said earlier that I met? This was at the same show.
Oh, Enrique?
It was we were talking about Vinnie Vincent Invasion.
Oh, yeah.
Slaughter, and I met them too. They were really cool guys.
Yep, they were nice. And I saw them a bunch of times. I just happened to catch them. They were opening for everybody. They opened for David Lee Roth a couple of different times. I think I saw them on a headlining tour for Long Cold Winter. I think they were playing with like Bullet Boys.
I seen them open up for Dokken, and they blew Dokken off the stage.
Oh yeah, Cinderella had a good stage show as well.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
They were
and Dokken got on the stage, and somebody apparently had stapled Don Dokken's feet to the stage because he couldn't move. So that must have sucked for him. And then because of the pain, he couldn't sing either. So that was pretty bad.
Don't get me talking about Dokken. I totally didn't mean to do that.
Anyhow.
Cinderella.
I like that.
I'm
it wasn't in my top 10, but I really like that album a lot
album.
too.
And I mean, I tend to take the piss out of the hair metal movement more often than not. I mean, there's some great music in it, but as a whole, I didn't really care for the genre. It didn't have enough substance for me. But the bands that did, they had a lot.
I liked a lot of the bands that had a little more of an edge, and Cinderella had an edge.
I felt that way about Bullet Boys too. I thought Mark Torian could sing his ass off, and I thought Cinderella and Bullet Boys, probably my two favorites from that era. Great bands.
All right, my next one is, this is not thrash.
Nope.
This is pure heavy metal. This is TT Quick, Medal of Honor. This album just freaking blows doors down. A great record.
Yep.
Just pure heavy. I even love the silly cover song on here, which is Glad All Over.
No kidding.
Glad all over, Dave Clark 5. and here's the thing, that I have the Dave Clark 5 album, the original pressing of that, with that song on it, and with my dad's record, so I already knew the song. I love this record.
Quiet Riot covered that too on their first album, I think.
Did they?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyhow, and Kiss covered a Dave Clark 5 song too.
Anywhere You Want It. That's the only reason I knew about Dave Clark 5 was Kiss's Any Way You Want It cover and Glad All Over by Quiet Riot.
Anyhow,
I never heard this one.
This is heavy. Of course, Mark Torino, who's now sings with Accept and has been singing with him for quite a long time.
That's right.
Then you've got Dave DiPietro, who moved on into make Nuclear Assault for one of their albums.
Oh, Glenn Evans was already gone from this one.
Yeah, he was gone. So Dave DiPietro went in and joined Glenn Evans in Nuclear Assault.
Oh, I didn't know that.
After left.
The guitar player?
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
I don't either. I just remember the singer. The singer was always there.
It was on the Something Wicked album. So anyhow, and that album actually took a different turn. That album for Nuclear Assault ended up sounding a little more like TT Quick than Nuclear Assault. They lost that kind of hardcore edge and went more of a metal edge.
But Danny Loper was still in the band.
Danny Loper was still in the band, still singing. And,
that's surprising. Yeah. Well, he wasn't a singer, but
right. Anyhow, this one is my number. I don't know where we're on now. 7.
I think that's 6.
6. Yeah. My number's no. This is number 7.
Oh, you're right. 7.
This is my number 7. So yeah,
this is my number 6.
Couldn't pull it down. Actually, have this on CD, and I have a promo pressing of this with the press kit in it. I just,
no, they had a third album, right?
Yeah, they had a third album called Sloppy Seconds, and a fourth album called Ink.
And that one I don't know.
And they had a live album too.
Okay.
The live album.
Thrown Together Live.
Thrown Together Live and Ink were both only ever released on CD, as far as I know.
EP prior to this was freaking killer.
Awesome.
Great metal EP.
I know that one also had a cover on it. CCR's Gummit.
Not Bad Moon Rising.
No.
Up Around the Bend?
I just had it in my head, and as soon as I said it, CCR, I forgot what it was anyhow.
I don't remember either.
We're not talking about that album anyhow.
That's okay.
Great album. I saw this tour. Hellstar is opening. Oh, I started telling that story earlier. Hellstar opened up, the place was packed. Headbanging everywhere. TT Quick came on, cleared the house. Nobody stayed for TT Quick except for me and my 2 roommates who were huge fans of this album.
Seriously?
There was nobody left. It was ridiculous.
That sucks.
It was awesome. TT Quick came out, paid the whole show. We were up front headbanging the whole time. And afterwards we sat around and shot pool and drank beer with the guys. It was so cool.
Awesome.
They were so nice, man.
And they're a New York band, right?
They're a New York band. And I got to meet Mark Torino while he was in Accept too, when they played in Hollywood. So.
Awesome.
Anyhow, enough about that. Sorry. I can
cool. Very cool. So that was your 7. This is my 6. Originally, it was in my top 5 for sure. But once again, this was not an album that I was into when it came out. I got into this much later.
Me too.
And I love St. Vitus. This was the debut album with new singer Wino, who was Scott Weinrich, and who was handpicked by former singer Scott Regers to take his place.
I love this record.
Great record. This is one of those ones that it's billed as a long play, but it's actually only got 6 tracks on it.
Right.
St. Vitus knew when to quit. They knew. I mean, I don't know if they did this consciously, but I loved this about them. Their albums were shorter, so they kept my attention for the whole release instead of losing me around track 12.
Right.
And because of that, you know, I refuse to do releases that are more than 10 songs. I just won't do it. I don't want to lose your attention.
You want to come back for more.
Yeah, exactly. And
wanting.
I like shorter albums. I do. I don't like unless we're talking about a double album. And if you're going to do a double album, you better have the songwriting chops to back it up. Otherwise, what a waste.
And I love the title track from this.
Yes.
I always consider it like a personal song to me. It was like, that's me. That's me.
And this is 86.
I know.
Doom was still not even on the map.
I just remember having the long hair and going into the 90s, and everybody would always tell me, long hair is not cool anymore. I'm like,
you never were.
Born too late. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, and I remember, I mean, let's see, probably around 88 is when I had my personal like Sabbath revival, and I was looking for this sound everywhere. But the only ones who had it were St. Vitus and Trouble. There were no Sabbath clones back then. There was no Doom or Stoner movement. This is 1986.
So the only other band was maybe Candlemass.
Yeah, and they were a bit more
epic,
grandiose, yeah. But this stuff was definite. A bunch of acid freaks, hippie carryovers, you know. St. Vitus to me was always the best combination of metal and punk. They were on a punk label.
Yeah, that was tripped me out. SST, yeah.
Yeah. Who later, you know, Soundgarden was on SST, a lot of other bands, but traditionally Black Flag. You know, Greg Ginn owned SST, it was his label. So it was really cool to have St. Vitus on there. And favorite tracks is really not a track on here I don't like. The title track, like Scott was saying, Clear Window Pane, which is like an acid song. It's basically singing about acid trip. Dying Inside, which is a song about alcoholism, it's just so raw and honest. HAG, which I believe stands for Hell Ain't a Game, I found out. Lost Feeling, which is about depression. And The War Starter. It's a strong 6 tracks. Technically, it's just an EP, but it's just a great album.
But the songs are so slow and kind of long too. So
yes.
So you got a Slayer album has,
10 songs that are 2 minutes each.
Yeah.
This has 6 songs that are like 8 minutes each.
Right.
Great album. Very simplistic cover, but I mean that logo's classic. I love St. Vitus. One of my favorites.
They didn't go over too well in general though during that time, because it seemed like '86. That's when the whole metal movement kind of fractured, and you had the hair metal pop kids over here, and they had the thrash over here, and nobody seemed like anything down the middle anymore. It was all
the guys that were kind of hippie holdovers from the '70s. Nobody was into that.
Yeah,
I loved them.
I did too. But see, I liked everything. I liked the pop stuff and the thrash stuff. It's like you can't be a thrasher and listen to that. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I must have not got that rule book in the mail.
I missed that one. Yeah. Here's my number 6.
Yeah.
Love this album. This was the sophomore album from Metal Church, Seattle-based power metal band, speed metal band. It's just a freaking heavy metal band. I don't know. There's a sticker on here. Metal Church formed in 1980. First album, 1984. I don't know why that's on here.
Oh. Have we got a different singer on this one? David Wayne already gone?
David Wayne this is his last album.
Oh, he was on this one.
He was on this album, so we still had the same members here. We still had the same sound as the first album. A little more refined, a little more better production, better playing. The first album, very first Metal Church self-titled album, I love that album too, but it's very loose.
That's playing's when they loose. Had the cover Highway Star.
Yes, the playing's loose, the timing is loose. If they were putting that album like up to a click track, it would be all over the place. You could just
which I personally love.
I
have no problem with that.
It ebbs and flows, and you lose that with a lot of stuff. But here they got tighter, they were just more vicious. I like this album so much that I convinced Ultimatum to cover Ton of Bricks.
Ton of Bricks was the one I remember from it.
I begged the band to learn that song, and I got no problem out of Rob Whitlock because he loved the song.
And it came out great. You guys did a great version.
And that's one of my favorite songs on the album. And we ended up playing that song live for the next couple of years. Actually, as one of our opening songs. So it was just so fun. We thrashed it up. I love the song. Love the album. But there's not a bad song on here. Start the fire, Method to Your Madness, Watch the Children, pretty great song.
Oh, I remember that one.
Over My Dead Body, The Dark, Psycho, Line of Death, Burrow at Sea, Western Alliance. Just a freaking awesome record. Why this didn't put them over the top, I don't know. Maybe because they weren't thrash. Again, they were kind of more down the middle. They weren't glam.
They seemed like they should have been thrash.
Right.
Kinda. But
yeah, and especially their early demos were kind of thrashy. But it's just metal. And David Wayne definitely had a unique style and voice.
Yeah.
But we lost him after this record too. He went off and Reverend.
Yeah. He's dead now.
He passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
He got gangrene after a car accident, and I don't know what happened after that.
But I guess that beats the typical drug-addled death.
He actually became a very outspoken Christian at the end of his life. So,
no kidding.
And if you listen to the last Reverend EP or the Wayne, he put out an album called Wayne with this logo.
One of them.
And the name of the album was Metal Church.
Oh, I remember. Yes.
And that you could definitely tell in the lyrics there.
Which one was his cover of Hand of Doom on? I knew he did a cover of that.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was in Reverend.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive it was in Reverend.
You're right.
Okay, top 5.
5.
Oh, all right. I was in college when this came out. Saw this on this tour. I was freaking amazed. They were awesome with Raven opening up. Saw them at the Penny Arcade, man, a little teeny club. But
first time Motorhead appeared as a 4-piece.
Yep. Awesome. So you got Wurzel
and Phil Campbell.
Yep.
Which were like Lemmy's secret weapons at the time,
They revitalized the band, and this album I still love to this day. I mean,
not their first appearance with Motorhead.
No, they were on the
but No Remorse. There were 4 new cuts,
4 new songs
and they were on those tracks too.
Death Forever's on here. Claw, which is weird because it's a song about Lemmy's penis.
Is it?
Built for
Which
Speed.
I always preferred the alternate version that came out later to the original one. Love that song.
Dr. Rock, of course, is on here.
Yep.
But yeah, Death Forever. I mean, that was probably one of the big songs on here. Mean Machine, Ate My Crime. I love this. It's Motorhead. I mean.
Okay, Pete Gill was still playing with him, formerly of Saxon.
Right.
I forgot Filthy wasn't on this one.
But when I saw them, when I walked into the club to see them play, as I walked in the club, there was this big dude just a big dude, hairy guy, and he handed me a button that said "Animal is back," and it had the Motorhead. You know, what's the guy's name from Motorhead? The little
Snaggletooth.
It had Snaggletooth, and it had "Animal is back." I wish I still had that button because he was playing in that show.
Oh, sweet, sweet.
By that time, on that American tour with Raven opening up, he was gone, and Phil was back with him again. So.
Okay.
And of course, we've lost Phil, we've lost Wurzel, and we've lost Lemmy.
Yep. And Phil Campbell pretty much stayed till the end. Phil
he
Campbell he never was replaced. Mickey D came in and played drums. Lemmy went back to a three-piece, and it was the most stable Motorhead lineup ever.
Yeah,
not the classic one, but damn, the one that was most.
It lasted for decades.
The loyal one, you know. All right. Number 5. This is the first time I've ever had this band in my top 10, let alone top 5. We put this one. Originally, this was my number 6, but
and I think I had it at number 5.
I think yours was number 5.
I think actually, yeah, but I think I originally had it at
six.
number 6, but it was the only one we agreed on.
Yeah,
so that's why we moved it up.
Yeah, and plus it was one that I got into when it came out.
Me too, and it dominated my.
Yeah. Honestly, I had the album prior to it, so I'd heard them before, but I bought this album only because I thought the cover ruled. I thought the cover was awesome. To hell with the devil. I thought it was such a ballsy description for them to represent themselves as 4 angels who were casting Satan into hell. I thought, that is so ballsy. That's so cool.
Yeah, I was just such a huge Stryper fan already because of Soldiers Under Command. And,
yep.
This album I loved it.
I would say this is probably hands down my favorite Stryper album. I just saw him play it last year in its entirety for its 30th anniversary. It's the one I would go to and choose if I wanted to hear some Stryper, for sure. I hated that they had pressure to change this really beautiful album cover, I thought, to this lame one, just because some people were too uptight and they couldn't.
And the biggest thing about it was this. But it wasn't so much even this whole thing, it was that. Why do they have a pentagram on their cover? I mean, if you look at the painting clearly enough, yeah, it's a necklace flying off the devil guy. Who cares?
It's just people are too uptight, and art is something that makes people uncomfortable when they don't understand it. You know, it's like those guys saying, "Oh, the 3-headed dragon's making fun of the Trinity." It's like, no, it's your limited worldview that doesn't allow you to see something beyond that shit that you already not shit, but the stuff you already know.
Yeah.
Your focus is so narrow that you can only associate certain things with other certain things. And
yeah,
I could go on forever about
Tim
that.
Gaines actually didn't play on this album.
No, he didn't.
The bass player from come on, help me out here.
I never knew who he was with. I just knew he was there briefly.
Leatherwolf, the bass player from Leatherwolf joined Stryper.
Oh.
They had this costume tailor-made for him.
Yep.
The promo photos were taken with him in it. Rip Magazine did a whole article on Stryper before this came out and had him in the pictures.
And man, what is it with Tim Gaines? He's the only one who's ever left the band and returned, and now he's out again.
He's out again, yeah. But anyhow,
what is with him?
So this costume right here actually didn't fit him completely. You can't tell here, but I guess the pants were way too short.
Yeah, I did hear something about that.
But
so
anyhow,
you can't see his feet in these, but again, my favorite Stryper album for sure. And it's funny because what was the most recent one? Fallen. It's got an artwork that's very similar to
yes,
this.
very. It's supposed to be. Yeah, it's got the angel falling and descending.
Yes, it's pretty intense. It's really intense.
And it's a really good album too. But anyhow, I love this album too. Yeah. I could do without honestly because it's that was the album, the song that sold this album. Honestly.
Oh, honestly, yeah. I thought it was Calling on You.
No, honestly,
there was one where
that was actually a top 10 single for them.
There was one that so many fans called into MTV to request the Calling on You.
Yeah, that was like I think was either Calling on You or Sing Along song. One of those.
Free. It was either that.
Maybe it was free. Anyhow, whatever.
Well, whatever it was, is that actually made them huge on MTV because of that, and that was a fan-based thing. So.
And they did definitely wear the glammy look here, not quite as glammy as they would get on the next album.
But they didn't sound glammy. Other than the really syrupy ballads, Stryper are actually pretty friggin' heavy.
Yeah, they had that serious overdriven guitar sound.
Yeah.
So. And
they had a great twin guitar attack. They did a lot of the
great vocal harmonies.
Oh yeah. And I think for me, I know that Michael Sweet went on to work a little bit with Boston, but I think he would have been a spot-on replacement for Dennis DeYoung and Styx.
Styx, yep.
Oh my, he sounds so much like him.
But he actually, I mean, not to put down Dennis DeYoung, but he can hit some freaking high notes, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he can shatter glass sometimes.
Yeah. I would love to hear them attempt a Styx cover, like something like Renegade or Blue Collar Man.
Well, they had Kansas. That was pretty incredible. Have you heard that one?
I haven't heard that one. No. I know they did a bunch of covers. I haven't heard them all. I do have them.
All right, so
we got 2 of these, but they're matching.
Yeah, they're the same ones. There's actually 2 versions of this cover, but they're just color differences.
Yeah, I was so into this album. I loved Rage for Order. Probably not more than the first EP.
Yeah.
I never got into Warning quite as much, even though I think it's a brilliant album now, and I love it. For some reason, I just didn't.
I love the EP. I love Warning. Love the Warning so much. I painted it on the back of my jacket.
Yeah, but this one is so odd because it had like they had more of a progressive feel to it, and there's some really strange sounds on it, like keyboard type embellishments. But it worked. It was a great album, and I still love it.
And they looked darn dapper, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a very far out look for sure. Jeff Tate definitely had his hair done up in some kind of pompadour kind of mullet. Very strange. I mean, they were always a little bit.
If he had fangs, he could be one of those vampires from the.
It's a goth look. He does. He has like a gray shock in his hair, and I mean, Jeff was always a little bit odd. But I love this album. There's not a track on here I don't like.
He doesn't have he doesn't think highly of himself.
No, he doesn't. I did like his Burt period, where he had the Burt little mohawk on top, or whatever you call it. Walk in the Shadows is a killer opener, awesome opener. I Dream in Infrared, The Whisper, Gonna Get Close to You was a single. Killing Words, Surgical Strike. New Regal was a great one. Comical Youth, London, Screaming Digital, I will remember, awesome. I love this whole album. This was one I used to spin over and over and over. I loved it.
And I'll take this album over the album that followed up this one any day of the week.
Yeah, I probably enjoyed this one more than Mindcrime.
Me too.
Even though Mindcrime's stellar, it's amazing, it was their peak, without question, I still liked this one better.
Me too.
Yeah.
I still do. I still like the first 3 albums best of anything they've done.
Yep, great stuff. We'll figure out who's after this. All right, we are down to number 2 and number 1.
Number 2.
I always honestly thought it was going to be harder for me to not put this at number 1 because I was always more in this camp than the other one.
Yeah, and
but I couldn't deny what a huge album that was for me.
Yeah, and this album was just, I don't know. I remember the video for that one, but they were all behind the cage. And I love that video. Yep. Was they like throwing things at the cage too, or was they mixing that up with the Blues Brothers?
I think it was similar, and there were people climbing on it.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, Megadeth, Peace Sells, the sophomore album. I was very, very excited to hear this one. I was a huge Megadeth fan because I got to see Megadeth at what was probably their 10th show as a band. They were a 3-piece. It was Dave, David, and Gar. I was so blown away. It was a life-changing show. So I'm in a club in Berkeley that it forever put me in the Megadeth camp. If I had to take sides in the Metallica-Megadeth feud, I would always go Megadeth, just because I was kind of there. So when this came out, I was really psyched to hear what they did with some of the older tracks. And Wake Up Dead, which I heard them do live, it was originally called Blood and Honor.
Right.
It's such a great song musically that I didn't even care that there weren't many lyrics in the new one, because the way that composition comes off is so cool. And I was not disappointed. Conjuring was a new one. I'd never heard that one before. Peace Sells was probably their signature tune now.
And they had that video with all the little flashing images. Yeah, it was.
I want to watch the news. This is the news. Cool tune. Devil's Island was another one that they played in the early shows. Good Morning Black Friday was one of my favorites from the early sets because it just had it had this kind of mellow intro, Dave just arpeggiating chords, singing the intro, and then goes into this song about a serial killer who kills people with an axe. But at the outro, it goes into this wicked riff that just nailed me. I still love it. Bad Omen was another track that was an old one. Another odd cover on here, I Ain't Superstitious, which I think was a Willie Dixon song.
Yep.
And then My Last Words, which originally was titled Next Victim. I was not disappointed in this at all.
No, and I think they stepped up to playing, they stepped up to production.
Yep, they
definitely stepped up to cover art.
Oh yeah, for sure. This was the Vic that was supposed to be represented on the first one.
And Dave's snarl, it's just awesome. I remember hearing people say he can't sing. He's not trying to, man.
Lots of people couldn't sing, but damn, you love hearing their voice when you hear them.
Yep.
Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, all those guys. He had a characteristic voice.
That's it.
Still does.
It was all about charisma, exactly.
Yep.
And he had the charisma, and that cover's iconic.
It is.
And Ripka became one of the most well-known thrash heavy metal artists.
Yep. And he's the one that brought Vic Rattlehead to life the way that Dave originally envisioned him. Dave drew the original ones that were on the flyers. Then when I went to their debut album on Combat, the label just completely dropped the ball with the cover, and it was like, seriously?
Yeah, there's that plastic skeleton head with the mountain climbing hooks in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess they did what they could. I don't know what happened, but yikes. Anyway, and I was only pissed about it because I knew what the original looked like, and I knew what it was supposed to be, and it was not.
Alright, this is on number 1. We both talked about this, and this would not have been number 1 today.
No, not today, but back then, holy shit.
Yep.
This was a hugely anticipated, and I spun this thing over and over.
Yeah, until the needle wore right through to the other side. But
I mean, this was kind of no surprise here.
Yeah, Master of Puppets. I mean, we couldn't not put it up here just because it was so influential. It was such an album that dominated us when we were, what was I?
This was my senior year in high school.
Yeah, I think
it was part of the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's just.
And it was also Cliff Burton's last album.
It was his last album. He died on this tour for this album.
Yep.
So,
and not too long after it came out either.
But
just a few months.
Back then, Metallica were like him and Megadeth. They were kind of like our bands. They weren't yet the pop.
Yeah,
everybody knows who they are.
They were still the best of the best, but they weren't. I mean, they weren't like where Metallica is now, where they're like a household name.
And I would actually say that most of this album is not thrash metal, even though it's generally listed in the top of thrash metal list. There's really nothing a whole lot of thrash. Batteries probably you could say.
Battery was there. I mean, Kill 'Em All was pretty much thrash all the way through.
Right.
Aside from maybe Four Horsemen.
Right.
Which was originally thrash, but and this one again they came out with that balls to the wall opener that had kind of become their trademark.
Right, and then closed with one.
Yeah,
Damage Incorporated.
Which is great, but the stuff they filled it with was a bit more dynamic.
Yep, a bit more pure heavy metal, even groove based. I mean, early groove based stuff.
Great riffs. I mean, Master of Puppets, the title track, has a great simple riff to it that.
Yep.
It's awesome.
And then everybody in the world was trying to copy this after this.
Yep. And it's tight as hell, and it's just a great. It's probably the last great Metallica album as far as from the original vision of what Metallica was.
Yep.
Especially for the kids who grew up with them and just loved them. This was kind of the swan song. I mean, when Cliff died,
it changed. The dynamic
totally
changed.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've actually read stories, that during this tour, before Cliff died, they were actually going to kick Lars out of the band. So
I heard something about that too.
But,
which Lars is kind of he was the guy who. He was the start of the whole thing. He found James, and I mean, say what you will about him. Back then, he wasn't as much of a weenie as he seems to be now.
I don't know. I mean, the guy. People always say, he's such a rock star, but I mean, you seen him on the Anvil movie, and he was so into Anvil and talking about it.
Yeah.
And anytime I've ever seen him, he always seems to be really into those bands he was into.
I think he's odd, and if you saw Some Kind of Monster and you saw his dad, and his dad was kind of overbearing to him, and I think Lars was always trying to impress him, but never really could. And I remember he was playing like the new tracks that would become Saint Anger for his dad, and he's waiting for his critique and all this stuff. And I think his dad kind of just hurt his feelings more than anything. So that may be part of why Lars is who Lars is. I don't know.
Anyhow,
that's Psychology Corner here on No Life Till Metal.
Yeah, I gotta confess, I rarely ever listen to this album anymore.
Oh, I don't either.
I played it so much.
We don't really have to. It's committed to memory pretty much.
I just don't. I mean,
but I don't have any problem putting this at number 1 for 1986.
Neither do I. It's a good album.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
Just came out actually, deluxe version, all fully remastered,
with bonus records and
bonus demos and live
stuff and the singles, right? Some of the 12-inch singles, stuff like that. Yeah.
I probably won't buy it.
Me either. I'm okay with it. I have my original copy still, and perfectly fine with that. So.
Yep.
Anyhow, that's it. That's
it.
our. That was a lot.
That was a lot, and it's been a long friggin' time since we did one. So,
and this will maybe doing another one in was it February? Thinking about coming down, so might be a few months.
Comes for Zebra.
That's what I was thinking about. So.
Oh, sweet! We're gonna go see Zebra February 11th out here in Scottsdale. They're doing a real small West Coast tour, and they're coming to friggin' Scottsdale. I'm wicked psyched. I haven't seen Zebra since. Damn, it was 1987. I saw Zebra in Cortland, New York, 30 years ago.
And they're just doing this little reunion thing. That's it, right? They're not recording anything new. So.
No, I don't think so.
All right, well,
great band.
Until that time, we'll this is it. I'm sure it's gonna be a long one, probably but at least 4 parts. So I'll break it up, and we'll see you guys then.
We're
Appreciate
thinking
y'all
about
watching.
doing a second video maybe while we're here this weekend. I don't know. We haven't decided yet. We're gonna try. If not, oh well.
We'll do it next time. Yep. That's it. God bless.
See
Stay
ya.
strong.